My name is Rodrigo Obando. I'm associate professor at the TISIF School of Computer Science and Columbus State University in Columbus, Georgia. And the name of our talk is Probabilistic Cellular Automata from, how do we call that, cluster signatures, right?
And my name is Jordan Huffman. I am an instructor at Columbus State University in Columbus, Georgia. Also, and this is I'm the co-speaker for this talk.
This work goes all the way back to 2003, 2004, when I started working with Stephen, and we were looking at the structure of the spaces, the rule spaces. The structures in general have been considered to be the distribution of the behavior is random. You know, it could be anywhere in the space because we normally do not see a structure in this space. But at that time, I thought, I think there is some sort of structure. And I started looking for that. And without going into too much into the details, if you want the details on this, if you're really interested in this, there's a 22-page paper that I published in Complex Systems last year that explains it all. So what I did at that time, I was looking to see if there was a way that I could organize the rules. And other people have done that, and they have not been able to do something like that. But it occurred to me that there was a way that I could partition and break the rules into two different pieces. So there will be, and in this case, I'm talking about two states, and radius 1, radius 2, radius 3, et cetera, et cetera. So I partitioned that, every single rule, into two pieces. I call them primitives, primitive 0, primitive 1. And each one of those will have a description, or will have an equation for each one of those, so that I could form the rule based on those two. When I did something like that, I created these functions that will help me. And in this case, you see here the break rule. I can take any of those rules. This is the ECA, the Elementary Cellular Automata. I would take each one of those. I can break them up into primitives. Here you see the 30, for instance, is 6 and 3. 110 is 10 and 7, etc. So I can break them apart and I can put them back together, which is something like they couldn't do with Humpty Dumpty, I think. Well, anyway, so we have this in here. We can break all this, etc., and then we are able to find what is it in the particular primitives that is causing change. One of the problems that we had with Langton's lambda back in the 80s is that they were counting ones only. And in reality, what you see in this case, these two primitives, when you count ones in the primitive 0, it is actually meaningful because it's introducing change. But when you count ones in the primitive 1, they're actually staying the same because it's 1 and the output is 1, it remains the same. So there, you actually have to count the zeros. So those are the ones that cause change in the behavior of the rule. You can go from 204, which is the identity, no change, to 51, which is complete change. It's the complement, and you go from one to the other. So anyway, I created this, and then I found that those primitives, in this case, the ECA, we have 16 primitives and 16 primitives. If I do a product, of those two sets, then I can get all 256. What I found was, though, that I could not order them, and that was my mistake at the beginning. I was trying to order this in a plane, and I was not being able to really see any structure, to see if I could find that the rules class 2 were over here, or the class 1 over here. I couldn't do that. I could find different ways to order it, and that's what most people told me. They said, if I can just change that how I want it, it's going to be different. So seems arbitrary to me. So when I started looking into this, and I look at the number of ones, number of zeros, and these two, P0 and P1, I found that actually is a partial order. And then I was able to put them in there, and I said, oh, that looks different. So I said, if I look at this in the 2 dimensions, but these dimensions are partially ordered, that will give me a very strange looking space of connectivity. And this, I take the entire space and I partially order it. And then I saw what I had seen before, but not as clearly, that there were pockets of class 1. there were other pockets that just class 2 all together, and class 3 all together. And I saw that there was some and meaning in that. So that's when he got involved into this, and I asked him to create a crawler into the space, and it was flat. And we were able then to go into one rule and see all the neighbors. And we started to see all these neighbors that were similar to each other. And later on, I decided, okay, let's go ahead and instead of just looking at those, let's automatically take one rule and find the clusters around. And that's what the work that he did for his master's. He just finished recently. Yes. Go ahead.
So let me, okay, this is kind of hot. So what we coined, the phrase we coined is cluster signatures. What I was able to find with my rule crawler as I move from node to node, the way the partial ordering system has the neighbors set up, because remember that each neighbor is only one bit apart from the central node that you're observing at that point, there was a pattern to that. So I created a cluster algorithm that actually figures out a signature for a rule. So a Sierpinski's triangle, they all have the same exact signature. And no matter how many times you run the signature, you will always get a Sierpinski's triangle. So the way the signature works is when your P means it is positively effective. Okay, N means it is negatively effective. So for instance, if your MPs of 0, primitive 0, the base state is 0. Okay, so a positive change to P's of 0 means the bit has to be 1. And a negative change means that the bit in P's of 0 has to be 0. Okay, if you're in P's of 1, the base state is 1. So that means to change, like I was saying earlier, a P in P's of 1 is a 0, and an N in P's of 1 is a 1. And then you have what the magic behind this really is the positions that are marked D. So these are dynamic positions inside of the bit string, okay, inside the primitive bit string. So anytime there is a D, it could flip to either 0 or 1, and it will not change the outcome, the output of the rule. So when we run a cluster signature like this, for instance, on the next slide.
Yep.
So when we create the rules for this particular signature, okay, what we get are all of these Sierpinski's triangles. Okay, and every time you run NPPN DDDP, you will always get those exact Sierpinski's triangles every single time. Okay, so there are 3 Ds, 3 dynamic bit positions, so that's 2 to the 3 different rules that it could create because the bits flip, and it doesn't matter. Okay, so when we actually can take the complement of that and get all of the opposites. So when you take the complement, the P's of 0 and the P's of 1 switch, and then they reverse. And so now the signature is PDDD NPPN. And now we see it actually generates for us all of the complement rules for that. Every time you run that signature, it will always create those exact rules. Okay, let's keep going. So then we tried mixed and, or otherwise known as non-uniform cellular automata. And what we did was we actually had a random distribution of the same exact rules. So those 8 Sierpinski's triangles, we would take every single one of those and randomly distribute those into a column for a rule, and then we would evaluate down. So when we get to this particular cell, well, this cell evaluates as if it were Rule 90. This cell will evaluate as if it were Rule 218, and so on and so forth, and we evaluate down, and it creates the same exact image as the base rules, which we will show you in just a minute. And then that really didn't serve our purpose as well, so we actually created a different way, and that's the probabilistic cellular automata, where what we do is we're actually using the signature to create the rule. So anytime there is a D, it is actually dynamically, probabilistically introducing change into the rule. And so we can force a rule to look a certain way, and almost, in a sense, rule engineering, if you will.
Yeah. So one of the things that we need to, I mean, I don't know how clear this is, but before we go and do the demonstration, so we say all these things because what we want to show you is a demonstration project that we have ready that we can actually show all this probabilistic cellular automata. One of the things with this particular cluster, remember when you look at the table, I mean, we can go to NKS books, you can go into any of the things, and you go 0 to 255, you see all the evolution of all the rules. Do you know where those are? They are all over the place. We never seen, they give you the same output, but they are all over the place. So how are they related? This is how they are related. Our clustering in the way that we put all these things together, put them together. So this, to me, confirms that there is coherence in how we order the rules. They are all connected and by the way, I'm working, and I'm so glad that they are doing Unity Link. I'm working with a HoloLens to create a three-dimensional view of this space so that I can walk around. And then I can connect it with Mathematica to do computations for me so that I can study this, because this is a very, really strange way. Yes, go ahead. A strange way of ordering the rules. But anyway, so that gives us a way of really joining all these rules that seem to be completely separate. They're not. We actually got the heart of the Sierpinski triangle, and we found the other parts that are not important. We found the essence of that particular pattern. So this is the mixed or the non-uniform cellular automata. So this one is one that we selected for each one of the cells. We selected 1 out of the 8. And then if he has it written so that he can hover over each one of these cells, and it tells you which rule is using. So go ahead and
It was, remember it was causing some errors.
Oh yes, problems. You know how it is. It's the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Anyway, what happens with this? You see when it says 90, that means that particular cell is evaluating 90. And if it moves all over the place in there, it will find all those 8 that we had before. And it works exactly the same for a single cell. Okay? So this is the mix or the non-uniform. But this is still deterministic, right? Because you define it, you have it in there, and you run it. The next one, which is the one for which you have a demonstration, this is in fact probabilistic. This one has the cluster signature itself. And everything is, the part that is deterministic, the P's and the N's, that's deterministic. But the D's are things that will change every time you evaluate this rule. So you can define this. You can actually use a base rule. We can do this in radius 1, radius 2. We can actually go to from radius 1 to radius 2. And then we can see the cluster signature. And in this case, we have all with P's all over the place. This means this is changing, this is positive changing. This is actually 51, which is the complement rule. Whatever is 0 will be 1 and vice versa. So we have, as we explore this, we had some of this. Yes, so then actually we have it in here bigger. No, this one. No, this one.
Oh, okay.
Here.
Okay.
There you go. We have one, we call it triangles with tendrils. And then we define it. This is just exploring. This is what we're trying to find this, which is PPP and NDDD. So that was very interesting to me. You have like the white is seeping through the sides. And we can actually do the stochastic, or the complement, excuse me. When you do the complement, it doesn't have exactly the complement, because you have all these things that would disappear. But if we change the initial conditions, it comes back to that. This goes back to the idea of, Is a single cell of one with whites always the simple one? Depends. You might actually have the complement of that initial condition. Okay, that was one. The other one is, we call it rips from top in triangles. This actually was very pretty. We saw that, this morning? So P, D, D, P. Oh, there you go. This one here, it has, in fact, triangles right at the end. Every time it finishes, it have a triangle. Very, very interesting. We do that also with complement, and we have the same issue, but we change the deterministic, we flip it around, and now we have it the other way. And there you go. You change the seed, it changes everything in here. Another one. We call this one rips on a veil, which is stochastic. We do P, D, 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 and D, D, P. That's it, right? So we see that there are, like, you're tearing the a veil. And the interesting thing is that there are places where they interact with each other. It becomes completely white. And we also have the complement for that one. And another one, seashell patterns. I mean, the seashell patterns, you've seen the seashell patterns, right? We see that in all kinds of books. You type that on the Google images. Oh, there are seashell patterns. Well, when we do these kind of seashell patterns, and I'm going to see, because I know that we are about to be done with this. One more. There you go. All these four variations are running from the same initial conditions. They are exactly the same. Nonetheless, when you look at each one of the evolutions, they're all different. Not only they are different, they're also similar. For your eyes, if I ask you, are those patterns the same? You would say, yeah, they are the same. The same way that you will take a look at a seashell and look at the pattern and look at another one and say, yeah, they are the same. But a machine will tell you, no, they're not the same, because it's comparing identically. But we know that they are the same. Well, this is the same kind of the same. And I can run this many, many times, and they will always give you a different set with the same conditions. We're not changing the seed. We can change the seed, and then you'll see that it will be different. But maintaining the same seed, because this evaluates the rule every single time, but it's still, and this is the intriguing part, it follows and it gives you the same output. How does it do to make sure that it will have the same conditions, global conditions? So this is what we call in a complex system, structurally stable. You can run it over and over and over, and it still gives you exactly the same output. Yeah, the last one. Yeah, this is white noise. For instance, this is, we decided to say, okay, let's take a look at this. All of them are random. Every single one. They're D's, all D's. So every time they evaluate, it simply randomly chooses one or the other for whatever input you have. So we started looking into this and let's see which is the bit that will change and will give us something. We started going one by one. Most of them were just noise until we found that if you just flip that one, it gives you something like the roots, on roots of plants or lightning, just a single bit. Now, this is, I know that it's just 8 bits. If you do the radius 2, if you want to really start playing with this, you have 32 bits to start, looking for certain things in here. Now, if you go into each one of these, I said we just by traversing these, we have found all kinds of interesting things. We still don't understand what it is that we found. But what I can see is It seems to me that I'm picking an area of the computational universe that is used by what we see in nature, creating patterns that look similar to humans, but they are not identical at the low level. Meaning they are coherent or they are similar globally speaking, but they are not identical when they are local. And this is what we see in nature. This is something that I've been asking myself for so long. How can a seashell will have that exact cellular automata? And everyone will have to have it. But then everyone will have to have different conditions. But what are the chances that you will find two seashells with the same exact pattern? Computationally speaking, I wouldn't know how to do that before. I do now. That doesn't mean I understand how. And that's what we wanted to share with you. If you have any questions. I don't know if we can answer them, though. This one, yes, it's going to be available. We already turned it in. But we're working on the demonstration for this. This is not complete. We're going to put it into the demonstrations project so that then you can just play with it. Yeah, this is a rule. This is in radius 2. Yeah, 32 bits. Yeah. By the way, we have, based on the ECA for 8 bits, because we're introducing one more possible state, we have 6,561 rules, probabilistic rules. So not 256, but 6,000, and some change. Yes?
On one of your earlier slides of the Sierpinski triangle,
Yes.
there were 8 of them, and you said they're all over the space.
Yes.
When I was looking at it, though, the first 2 were separated by 8, the second 2 were separated by 8, the third and the fourth, and the first and third, the second and fourth, and so on, were separated by 64. So there's a pattern there.
Oh, yes, there is.
Are those similar patterns? Do similar patterns turn up with other self-similar cellular automata of the 256?
We have not actually looked at too many of them yet to actually be able to tell you yes. Because some of the patterns that we found are not as clean as the Sierpinski.
And then the pattern that I just saw, the 2Q and the 2 to the 6th, do those have anything to do with your signature? Could those be translated to the signature?
Which one?
In the Sierpinski triangle.
Oh, yes.
The difference is, 8s and 64s. That's 2 cubed and 2 to the 6th.
Right, right.
So those powers of 3 and 6, do they have anything to do with the character?
For the character, I'm not sure. See, we sort of just found that. I had just enough time to send to present it here, which I thought it was the ideal place to come and present it and have the feedback from you and the questions that you may have. But no, we need to look into that. In fact, when we looked at that and we have the 3Ds, everything else is actually what defines the Sierpinski triangle. The rest is like, it doesn't matter. If you just, leave those however you want, they will not affect the main characteristic. Yeah, but it's something that we need to look and see the distances in this. But that's why I want to visualize this space, which is the partially ordered space, and see how is it that they are related, and see the shapes of those clusters in this space. Thanks. Any other questions? That's exactly the kinds of things that we are going to be looking into. This is like, oh my God, we found that. We're going to show everybody else, though we don't understand yet. But those are the kinds of questions. And in fact, I have an entire page of just questions that we want, we want answered. But those are the kinds of things that we are looking into. Yes?
What prompted the decision to analyze these by cluster and not by something like transition probabilities between successive rules?
The reason is that I was looking for global behavior. So we were simply comparing. We can actually change the comparison, the metric that we're using, and then compare. We use even Fourier transforms in analysis of images, and then we use bit by bit, etc. But we can, it's a plugin. We can remove that one, put that one in. But then this one you can explore manually as well. And then you can decide, you said, I want this, and then you find the cluster. Yeah. All right. I think that's it. If you have any other questions, we'll be glad to fill those at another time. Thank you. Thank you.